Hey guys, this is Aaron Hilliard from Mushroom Wonderland and my dog Gunner. And today we found a whole bunch of beautiful oyster mushrooms growing on these logs. And these are a delectable edible in the springtime. And on this episode, I'll show you how to identify and safely harvest wild edible mushrooms to take home and cook up. Thanks for watching this episode of Mushroom Wonderland.
Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland.
It's springtime and it is beautiful outside and mushrooms are starting to grow. It is warmed up and the fungus is starting to produce fruiting bodies, and spring is a good mushroom season. Fall is the ultimate mushroom season, but one of the mushrooms that you can find in both of those seasons is the oyster mushroom. Really easy to find, really easy to identify. You can spot these on trees a long ways away. They grow on dead wood. So you find the forest, you're gonna find the fungus. Oyster mushrooms are what is known as saprobic, so they eat decaying matter, and they particularly like hardwood trees. And here in the Pacific Northwest, big leaf maple, alder, even cottonwood. These hardwood trees that we have growing around here are great food for oyster mushrooms. So the fungus infects the log, and then eventually it will create fruiting bodies, sort of like an apple tree when it produces an apple. It's really important to know that oyster mushrooms have gills. If you're familiar with mushrooms in the grocery store, they have gills underneath, right? You've seen those. They look like little paper slits on the bottom of the mushroom. If you're picking mushrooms off of a tree and it doesn't have gills, there is no chance that it is an oyster mushroom. So that's a really characteristic ID feature of oyster mushrooms, is they always have gills. They also are always growing on wood. Sometimes that wood is buried. Sometimes it's even like mulch or chopped up wood, but very rarely. Usually they're growing right out of a log. Now they could be cultivated to grow on straw, wood chips, wood pellets, soybean hulls, all kinds of things. Oyster mushrooms are a really voracious and easy mushroom to cultivate. A lot of people who are just getting into mushroom farming start with oyster mushrooms because they're easy to find in the wild and they grow well. Go into an area where it's like a wetland. Around a wetland is a lot of deciduous trees like the red alder that I'm looking for. And wherever there's live alder trees, there's gonna be dead alder trees laying around, and that's where we're gonna find our mushrooms. Oh, dude. I just came into Oyster Wonderland. Wow. And there's a log up there with a lot of young, fresh oysters growing on it. Look at that. Oh yeah, baby. So right here I have oyster mushrooms, and they smell vaguely like licorice or anise to me. And when they're young and stout like this, these are a delicious edible. So you see the gills, they run basically to the very bottom, but not quite all the way to the bottom. They kind of peter out down there towards the base. Enrolled margin, so this is a perfect age specimen. So this is a red alder log, and you can see them growing all along here, and I see a bunch of more flushes up there. So we're gonna collect some oyster mushrooms and take them home and cook them up, and we're gonna try out some oyster mushrooms. Look at these, super stout, thick babies, and they've already got some fungus gnats hanging out on them. See that? Laying larvae. So these get wormy super duper fast, but when they're this young and prime, these are perfect oyster mushrooms for gathering for the dinner pot. So definitely going to harvest some of these. Pleurotus pulmonarius, you know, or you could compare it to pulmonarius, but a nice flush of oyster mushrooms. I'm in the stand of kind of mixed conifer and a bunch of red alder near this wetland. That's where you're going to find alder, and that is a great place to find pleurotus or oyster mushrooms. And look up here on all of this broken up wood, we have amazing fruitings of oyster mushrooms. Look at this. How nice is that? So really good edibles, really good to harvest and eat. So I'm gonna go ahead and collect a bunch of these oyster mushrooms. I keep this beat up old brown grocery bag in my backpack just for occasions like this. I didn't bring a basket today, but I'm prepared to collect some mushrooms. So basically just pluck them right off the log like this, and you can try to avoid getting too much of the bark and moss in there, but I'm gonna get these younger specimens because these are just prime. And they're kind of dry right now, which is not bad. I'm not mad about that. What do you think, buddy? Really nice oyster mushrooms. So let's head back and see what we can cook up. All right, we're going to start by cleaning some of these oyster mushrooms up. Seems like a really good amount for a steak dinner, so I'm going to chop these up pretty rough. Just going to put our oysters right into a dry pan. This is going to allow them to dry saute, which means just cook all the moisture out and let that all cook off before we start adding oil or fat so that we can get that nice brown caramelization. All right, not a lot of water coming out of these mushrooms. I'm starting to see a little gold and brown color, so I don't think they're going to steam off too much water. I'm going to add a nice pat of butter in there right now and just give these something really to caramelize with. I'm going to add a little bit of onion to my mix. All right, we got that nice caramelization, but I'm afraid it's a little bit dry, so I'm going to add in just a little bit more butter. All right, you guys, it doesn't get much better than that. This is amazing. We just have steak topped with oyster mushrooms. This is a super classic way to do wild mushrooms. This smells amazing. It smells better than it looks. So I'm going to enjoy this steak and mushrooms, and I hope that you guys hit subscribe and check me out on the next video of Mushroom Wonderland. I don't know if anything complements a steak like wild mushrooms, and oyster mushrooms are so good. When you learn how to forage these wild mushrooms, you'll never have to buy mushrooms in a store again.